So typically around now at the hour and a half point, we pull up questions. Now, strangely enough, there's only one question, which I'm kind of surprised about, but that's all right. So why don't we go ahead and bring up that question again when you have a minute. There you go.
Should you add sand to help worms digest or ingest? Yeah. So when you're starting a worm bin, it's good to add a little bit of grit. I've noticed that people who do, how should I explain this? Beginning worm farmers can tend to go a little bit overboard on this, and worms don't really need a ton of grit. Like if I've got a bin that's, a couple feet deep, like there's only once or twice that I'm sprinkling just a tiny little bit of sand in there, like right at the beginning, just to give them something to digest with. And then, maybe halfway through, but it's not like something that you have to add nonstop. And sand works great. A lot of people are trying to pay for something or find something that they can. What I'm trying to say is there's no reason to have to pay for anything. Like go get some sand, like the tiniest little bits of sand, and sprinkle that in your bin.
Great advice. I try to get people to wildcraft whenever possible. I mean, there's all these resources all around us.
Right.
And especially like, in the colder climates, come spring, all that sand they use on the roads has been, basically washed free of salts and additives and everything else, and piles up in the catch basins, right? So if you go to where the catch basin dumps out into the stream or the river or the watershed, there's endless fucking supplies of sand.
Yeah.
And that brings up another good question. Have you ever played with rock dusts?
I'll add some rock dusts into like my vermicompost, but it's nothing that I've like really researched or, like looked at the biology and then like added some and seen what it does to biology or anything like that.
So there's a gentleman out here who's a pretty well-known vermicomposter. He has like these fruit bins that he composts in. So they're like, they're 4x4 or like 40 inches by 40 inches. Whatever.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you can pick them up with a fork truck and move them around. And he's had tremendous success with those because basically when you water them, any excess water in the form of a leachate will just fall out the bottom. Where in windrows, like the place that I'm working at now, Peach Hill, the windrow, the bottom, 4-6 inches is just fucking anaerobic soup because there's just not enough place for that to go. Right. And he adds like, I don't know, probably 10 different rock dusts. And when you look at his worm castings, he's not fungally dominant, but man, he is a fertilizer. Like the chemistry level on that stuff is amazing. And I don't understand whether the worms are actually, using that grit and grinding it together and making it even smaller, again, increasing the surface area so that the bacteria can take hold and build their biofilm and start digesting it, or what. But when you look at his chemistry reports, he's totally an organic fertilizer, like off the charts.
Right. Yeah, so, and I as far as like adding something like that in, I'd be more likely to add it in after it was fed to the worms, but I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference.
Gotcha. Well, again, I've been bugging him to come on this podcast for 2 years now. Or well, I tried to get him on the other podcast I did, but he's a shy guy. He's like, no, I don't do this. So again, I was happy when we connected because I'm like, damn, now I got one vermicompost guy, and I have another one, Chandler from Wormies. Yeah, you know Chandler?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Chandler's a great guy. I was actually.
Oh yeah, you went through there.
Yeah. I did an impromptu soil awareness day there. And it was crazy because like I literally didn't know until 24 hours before I was going to be there that I was going to be there, because it was like all these different people I'd stop and see. Sometimes it would take a couple more days than I expected, or sometimes that person wasn't available, and so I had to keep moving on. But I hit him up and said, "Hey, dude, I'm going to be in Michigan on tomorrow at such and such a time. If there's anybody that wants me to whip out my microscope and check your soil, let him know." And he goes, "Cool, yeah, I was going to ask you if I could invite some friends." So I got there, and by the end of the day, there must have been 20, 25 fucking people. And they were asking really good questions, man. Like really good. Like in the years prior to COVID, when I did, whether it was the conference or the soil awareness classes, improv 2 shit, I might get 5-6 people, nothing big. And the questions were, it was more me monologuing the understanding of it than it was a, question and answer session. But yeah, Chandler's, man, definitely some like really knowledgeable people that really were happy and interested in learning more about, the deeper understanding of all of this. And, so I'm glad that you know it. Do you guys connect on Instagram or by email?
Well, Luis his partner at Wormies had been to the NC State Vermiculture Conference. I don't think Luis spoke, but we met there and had a conversation, and I've kept in contact with Luis. And then through our relationship on Instagram, I chat with Chandler different times. We used to chat a good amount more. I haven't in a while, but
he got really busy when he moved into that new facility. So he was scrambling like a madman when I was there.
Yeah.
But a really badass facility. I mean, he has plenty of room to expand now.
I want to see it. I'd love to see it firsthand. Yeah.